Dear brothers and sisters, inshallah, you're all well. I've decided to speak about John, inshallah. But before I get to that, I'd like to talk a little bit about prejudice and discrimination. An unknown author once said that we are burdened by prejudices against the strong and the weak, the skinny, the obese, the smart and the slow. Prejudices are something that we develop naturally, but it is noble for us to overcome them. If I came up to you and I said, black man, what is some of the, considering occupation, what are some of the images that are portrayed in your mind? Probably an entertainer, a rapper, or a basketball player, someone that is involved in any other sports. No one's ever going to think scientist or dentist, archaeologist, astronomer, or even teacher for that matter. Why is that? It's because the way that the black man is portrayed in society and the media these days. And a lot of people say that prejudices is something that we develop naturally, but that's something I'd have to disagree on, because when I was a child, I can never actually remember being prejudiced. Like when I was a child, I didn't care if you're a black, white, brown, or Asian. All I wanted to do was have some fun and play with you. I didn't really care what you looked like. I find that we develop prejudices through experience and growing up in this society. So I can't say that we are all actually naturally prejudiced or racist. Then you always find people who say, I don't like this particular person, I don't like him or her because she is different from me, or she does not look like me. I find that differences in today's society is portrayed as such a negative thing. But me personally, I find that differences is actually quite beautiful. Imagine a world where everybody was the same. We all were the same color, we all spoke the same language, we all practiced the same religion. I mean, life would be quite bland and boring. Wouldn't you think there would be no sense of adventure going to explore different races and different practices and all the different types of architectural history? So it's amazing how it could take one of Allah's defined and biggest blessings, and as ignorant and as arrogant as we are, we could turn it into one of today's society's biggest problems. So I have to ask ourselves, why are all oppressors so fixed on differences, on presenting differences through the media? Because they do not like unity. Because when people unite, that is when they start having revolutions. If you look in the Middle East these days and all the Occupy Wall Street movements, it's all because people have decided to unite and come together, and that's why they are opposing oppression. So oppressors, they like to shoot out these images of differences out into the world so that we could kind of look at each other and kind of get divided and not really unite. So they kind of try to use the art of divide and conquer. So for most of John's, I'm going to talk a little bit about John right now. Most of John's life was spent with the Ahlul Bayt. He started with Imam Ali alayhi salam. He was initially his slave. With Imam Ali alayhi salam, John learned the tafsir of the Quran, and he memorized the whole Quran off by heart. So John was obviously a very wise man. Eventually, when Imam Ali alayhi salam died, John went on with Imam Hassan alayhi salam. And then after Imam Hassan, he went on to Imam Hussein. Once it was the day of Karbala, and it was John's turn to go up to Imam Hussein and ask if he can go and fight. Some sources will tell you that John asked Imam Hussein if it was okay for him to go and fight, even though he's a black man. And he asked if Imam Hussein didn't want his black blood mixing with his in the sands of Karbala. Now, I find this very hard to be true, because considering the knowledge that John had and his knowledge of Islam and what the Ahlul Bayt was all about, and the knowledge of the characterizations of Imam Hussein, I doubt that it ever crossed his mind that Imam Hussein would ever have any racism towards John, and that Imam Hussein would ever feel uncomfortable around John because of his color. So I find that that situation cannot be very true. So I find that us as a society, we have to learn to put away our differences, because I find differences a very unnecessary problem in this day of time. And we have to learn to unite together, and inshallah we'll also be the Ansar of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. But we have to remember that being Ansar Imam Hussein alayhi salam, we have to be true Muslims. Being a true Muslim means believing in God, opposing the wrong, forbidding the wrong, and doing what's right. So we have to try our best to do what's possible in order to help Imam Hussein alayhi salam, because there are two different types of Ansar. There's the modern day Ansar, and there's the Ansar of the time of Karbala. A good example of Ansar of today's life is Malcolm X, for example. Malcolm X, he would always do what was right, and he would always do what he could to oppose oppression by any means necessary. Malcolm X, he would try always to oppose the tyrannies and everything like that. So in my book, if you tried to oppose oppression, you are then considered an Ansar of Imam Hussein. So inshallah, we will be able to unite together as one, and put aside our differences and overcome them, because Islam teaches us not to be racist, and inshallah we'll be able to do what's right and be ready to be the Ansar of Imam Mahdi alayhi salam.